Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the November 12th, 2024 meeting of the Douglas Board of Selectmen. If we could all stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, we did it without it. We're independent.
Nothing much in the way of chairman's announcements other than to root on the varsity girls soccer team as they make their way through the MIAA girls soccer tournament. I think they are ranked number one and state championship or bust. Is there anyone that was here that would like to speak on something that is currently not on the agenda? Seeing as none, I had a request, and I'd like to honor that, is that we skip around a little bit and bring our friends up from the Douglas Common Preservation Society to help them close out their day. So come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Hello.
Yeah, we'll get another chair for you.
That's the hot seat, be careful.
So, tell us, what do you have in store for us and the townspeople?
Oh, we have a return of a much requested over the years activity at the Common, which is going to be a 1-hour holiday lighting celebration. So we did get a grant from the Mass Cultural Council, which enables us to hire the Very Merry Dickens Carolers, so they'll perform for the hour. And we have Santa, who'll be there for photo ops for the kids, as well as the new herd of reindeer will be there, so there'll be more photo opportunities. All the same great lighting that we had last year. And it's just going to be a nice community event to get people together, those who choose to come.
Lovely.
We've already hired 2 police to direct traffic. I think Lynn has arranged for parking with the church, and hopefully we can park at the cemetery in the old Douglas Center School.
And the Boy Scouts said we could use their parking, their area to park as well,
Okay.
and walk down.
And then, I don't know about, in the past, what we've asked is that we close the street at the end of Common Street and where the telephone pole is in front of the church, and maybe that little section of Northwest Main Street, and we can use that for handicap parking.
Well, on that, I would defer to both the chief and superintendent, for sure. But we've had big events up there in the past, and there's enough auxiliary streets, I think, to accommodate any overflow, but no, it sounds great. There
Look forward to it.
any questions of the board?
Yeah, I would recommend just using the Douglas Youth Soccer area. Their season closes, I think, this past week, and so you got ample parking down the path where this field is, as well as, behind the school, as well as the PFW
Right.
area. Probably, a little more ideal parking in that area than some other spots, because the church fills up pretty quick the first
It does. It's a
congregational,
small-
I mean,
Yeah.
Yes,
and stuff like that. That's all. No, that sounds great.
it should be a nice evening.
How many people have been there in the past? I know it's,
Well, this is a scaled-down version of what was done in the past. In the past, I know we had, if I remember correctly, there were horse-drawn wagons, and the streets were all closed off, and you would have a better idea of,
Yeah, I mean, we've had sometimes as many as 200 come over the course of the night, but I don't think this will be
I
as
don't think so
as
either.
big,
It might be, there's Christmas signs in stores these days, so there may be a wave of Christmas spirit heading across the
music's
land.
already playing.
Yeah.
Free food's always a big draw if we have food.
yes, we'll be
Don't do that.
offering refreshments, too.
Right.
So, and I saw that you've got the approval or the support of both chiefs. We'll continue to work with them, specifically on that parking thing.
Great.
Is there specific motion we're looking for today, other than acknowledgement of your fine work. Matt, we looking for anything in particular other than our blessing?
Town property, so I'm looking for you to vote.
I move that we approve the request for the use of the town common for Christmas lighting event to be held on November 30th.
Motion's been made by Hal,
I'll second the motion.
seconded by Les. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous, and holiday cheer to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same to you.
Hope you come and join us
I
there.
think we will.
Thank you.
That live reindeer there.
Yeah, do you need an elf or two? I got a few that might sign up.
Could use some help. If they are willing to volunteer to help man the crowd, sure.
All right.
Only if the union helps.
Yeah. Mike, good thing you're here, otherwise you'd walk away with a elf job. Keith, the town moderator, would you like to come talk to us about our warrant, the town meeting?
So I have an idea for them first.
Yeah.
You only hire one police officer, but you get the cannon working.
Yeah.
In case there's any disruption.
Yeah, that'll direct traffic, you know, you get somebody
Get
that's,
some
you know, being a
publicity.
little unruly, you fire off the cannon, and
Make that happen.
I bet we could.
Great.
I mean, in all seriousness, it's awesome to see the common come alive. They've been doing a great job. It's always heartwarming to drive by and see, you know, something beautiful like that being used, which I feel like with that I should jump over to the article about the school, but we'll get there a little later. Okay. Article 1, like I say, I always just ask the questions when the amounts are higher. IT expenses, public building maintenance wages, police wages, and I literally was going to say, I don't need to shut my phone off in here because it's not like we get service anyway. And then my phone went off. So I apologize for that, and just allow me to mute it. Okay. Yeah, so just some, and then I guess the other one is the increase in employee benefits. What were some of the cost drivers on the ones that are over 25 grand?
Which ones do you want, Gene?
So I can start with employee benefits. I'll work up because that's the one I remembered. That is due to both a census change. When we look at the September, October, the number of people that come on versus the number of people, you know, going from individual to family, we do an analysis after school starts. So if we look like we need to add to the account, this is when we do it.
Okay.
There was also some change in the property and liability. So insurance, employee benefits are all in one group. So that would take care of hopefully both of those things. And just a reminder, we look at the fall town meeting as a raise and appropriate opportunity. After this, it comes from a transfer from another department. So once we get to the spring, it has to be transferred. So I like to, you know, identify the problems that we have now or the issues and then try to address them at the fall. Going up, you said over.
Yeah, over, you know, 25,000 or over.
Tree warden expense, again, this has been a reoccurring fall town meeting. We do a budget in the spring and we supplement it in the fall depending on where new growth is certified and if we have enough funds to help that project as a whole. Community development.
What's been going on with the tree warden, where it's?
Well, we still are working on it. I'll let Matt address it.
We still have hundreds, if not close to 1,000 dead trees in the public right away.
Okay.
So N-Grid does help us with some of these, but the town has been putting 50,000 in at the fall town meeting for a number of years now.
To be fair, National Grid is spending about 3 to 1 to us, but we're contributing. That's a partnership that we've built with Grid. And It's been going on for quite a while now, since that last outbreak of gypsy moths and winter moths, the morbidity with oak trees has been almost 30%. So, you don't think of it, now's tough time because the leaves have dropped, but if you drive around some of the roads in town and look up and see dead branches, that tree is dead. If it's leaning over wires or could close the street, then we try to get it out of the way.
Yeah, definitely the preventive maintenance before the winter.
So there is a tree maintenance plan, if you will. Adam is the tree warden, so he would be able to explain that better than I could, but there is a plan in place for that. Community development expenses, that is a contractual obligation now. We hire out on a contractual basis instead of having an employee in that position. So that's,
Conservation agent.
I'm sorry, yes, what did I say?
You said just community development in general, but
Oh,
it's,
yes,
we have outsourced the conservation agent responsibility to a private firm.
Okay.
We only pay when he's on a case and billing. But we're trying to make sure we get the budget right.
right. So community development as an umbrella handles community development, which we have a full-time position, and
That's
then the
only part of
conservation
that, that's
agent.
not the whole 40,000.
That is-
The other is bounds,
Yes,
Is the what?
yes.
boundary markers.
Okay.
Yes, the highway bounds were 20,000, and the conservation agent was the balance. And the highway bounds, we used to have separate articles for that, so because there's a number of them now, they're just going to be added to the budget, and then we'll handle them as we go along. So we're going to put that
To
additional...
draw out of the budget rather than...
Yeah, instead of having a special article for each one, because then you're monitoring a dollar amount, it wasn't working, so if we put X amount of dollars, they can do up to that, and then next year, they'll just, tick up on the next list.
Okay.
I'll let Matt handle all the public safety.
While fire expense is going up 24,000, that's largely driven by repairs. We had a significant overage on that budget.
Repairs for...
The ladder truck and engine 3.
Okay.
Police wages, there's a lot of back and forth on this, because we had roster changes this year, and in order to make sure he had sufficient staffing and hired experienced people, we took an officer out of retirement, put him back on the full-time payroll, so he came in at a higher rate and had been budgeted for that slot on the roster. And I'm trying to think, there was one other,
We did hire an officer with experience, too, so they didn't start at step one, they started at a higher, yeah.
but that was just that one officer. There was another change here that, I don't know if it was dispatcher contract or something else that we didn't pick up during the budget season, but it was, that's what happened there. So public building maintenance wages, if you draw an arrow down to decrease highway wages, we're moving a position from one department to another.
Okay.
So I'm trying to pave the way, pun intended,
Nicely done.
to follow through on a policy initiative that we discussed at some length with different boards, which would be to have someone in charge of facilities management for the town, and to relieve the highway superintendent of that responsibility. But the feeling is that position is now so specialized, it shouldn't be in highway, it should be moved over to public building. So that's, we can't advertise the position if it's not funded. Can't really have a conversation about hiring if we don't, this chicken or egg issue here, so we're going to move the money over because the highway superintendent doesn't feel like he needs a working foreman at this point.
Okay. And then the IT expenses?
Those are additional hours. So the rate went up for the consulting, and then we no longer install software, operating system software with floppy disks on towers, right? We're subscribing to Microsoft 365 for all the software and the apps that we use, Teams and all the rest. And so that particular expense this year, the per subscriber costs went up more than we had anticipated it was going to at the time the budget was done. So that information came in after springtime meeting, and it was a substantial overage, so we want to pick it up here. So future budgets will incorporate that money. That's an ongoing expense.
Just a kind of high-level overview, moving on to Article 2. Just a high-level explanation of the school security. I'm not looking for like, I assume there's some, I don't want to say secrecy to that, but I can't imagine we're advertising all of the,
Yeah, just to,
Discreet.
yeah.
yeah.
Long story short, the 4 buildings are each of a different vintage. So the security systems that have been implemented on a building-by-building basis don't communicate with each other effectively. Some of the hardware no longer really is operational at all. And in order to provide a school system-wide solution that's all on one platform and communicates back to dispatch here, required, in some cases, cabling upgrades. We actually have some cameras in this town that are running off old coaxial cables in walls, which,
I'm familiar.
we discovered when we started taking things apart. And the cameras themselves and the switches and everything else came in well over the amount that we had set aside from ARPA funds. So we are looking for additional funding so that we can complete the other 2 schools. The school committee voted with the available budget to obligate the existing funding that we have to deal with 2 of the buildings. The other 2 buildings would now be completed for $300,000. That's really not going to happen. Now I'm going to choke on the sugar. That's
Grandpa Les.
the way.
Here's a hard candy, kid.
Every meeting.
I lose my voice whenever I talk too much, so it's a cue to shut up. But, so that's where we are with this. We had relied upon a designer early on that was using sort of plug-and-play technology that, like Radio Shack style. And when you really put that through its paces, it wasn't a viable design at all. So we had to hire another designer who was a professional in the field and familiar with all the major players in this market space. And after all the bids came in, this is what we got. We asked the bidders to bid each building individually, so if we fell short, we could still go forward and do some of the buildings, and not all of them. But this is what we need to complete the whole project.
So a transfer from previously approved projects, 23,000, is that just monies that wasn't needed?
So the way we do it is we keep the project open until town meeting can transfer it to another project if it came from free cash as a funding source. So you're using it for a one-time expense each time. So
Okay.
any project that has a balance of $100 or more, I keep it open, and then it becomes an available fund for capital again.
So there's more than this in available funds, but that's what is being transferred at this time?
These are the projects that were funded from free cash, were completed,
Yep.
and there was a balance
Okay. And that would zero us out, or that,
for that particular project. So Highway Department sidewalk and tractor, we bought the tractor. I forget what the appropriation was. There was $6,700.
oh, okay, all right.
It's the leftovers.
I get the math. So it's from
From prior capital projects that went through.
okay. I wasn't picking up on that line under the
Oh,
shaded, so I
gotcha,
didn't
gotcha.
realize that was the
Yes.
addition on it. Okay. Thank you. And then free cash is obviously found money, so that's good.
That could be a 10-minute conversation.
I gotta get you every
You know, Gene, after all these years, you can't be teaching a guy
After all
like
these,
Keith.
you still
Yeah.
when somebody hits your knee with a hammer.
He ain't gonna learn.
It's like
As long,
nail in a
as long as you're going to make me do a special town meeting combined with an annual town meeting, I will continue to pick
Okay.
those.
All right, game on.
Depot Street project seems pretty self-explanatory. It's, the eminent domain, so Article 5, why eminent domain? And then it seems like it's obviously related then to Article 6, where we're purchasing property from the same.
So I broke this up, Mr. Moderator, into the legal authorization piece to direct the select board to follow the eminent domain process. I separated that from the financial piece just to make a clean vote on both. So not have such a complicated motion. The eminent domain selection is on the advice of council to establish title in the town of Douglas firmly and to extinguish all claims that might be held against it. We have negotiated a price, an acceptable pro tanto value for the land with the owner, and that is how we're going to proceed, basically, so that it's a friendly taking, so to speak. There will be no objection.
It's not contentious.
That price and the funding mechanism is set up on Article 6.
Okay. Just play this out. If Article 5 passes and Article 6 fails, what happens then? Not that I would anticipate it, but
All right, so in that scenario, if the select board had the authority to proceed with eminent domain, they could still file the paperwork, negotiate a new price, and come back to town meeting in the spring with that price and ask for.
so Article 5 just gives the select board the ability to take it by eminent domain, and then it's up to them to finish it off with something like Article 6.
You taking these in separate votes? You're not looking to bundle anything so far? Like usually you bundle like maybe 1 and 2? Or?
I bundle more at annual.
Okay.
Other than these two, they are all,
Singles.
yeah, they're not.
You could give one explanation for tying the two together. It might be a little clearer to people rather than.
Or you could keep them separate. You mean, no,
Unless the quantum of vote is different, and that's what I'm not sure of. Did you have a chart from Rich?
That's a good question.
The eminent domain quantum might be different than
Yeah, because if you took them both together, then the higher
the higher one.
would prevail. And I'm not sure there's any benefit, honestly, to taking those two.
He's saying 2/3 on 5 and 6.
Okay, so it's the same. I'll think about it. I want to think about that.
You could keep them separate and just give one explanation as to what you're doing with the two.
Well, I mean, truly, if you're going to give one explanation and you want to, follow the boundaries of each discussion, if you're going to give an explanation of both, then you should consider both at the same time. So maybe what I'll do is I'll accept the motion to move them both, and if it seems like, things are kind of going awry, then maybe we'll take a motion to separate them. I'll think about that one a little more. And just,
The benefit of taking one over the other one wouldn't help the town, actually. The town needs both lots in order to proceed on that, so that would be the motivation to try to combine the two of them.
I think he's talking about the 2 articles.
No, I get that. That's what I'm saying, combining the 2 articles together.
You can figure it
And
out.
where, this is what, up behind the fire station?
Correct.
Can we get a better map, like a good map or photograph or something? Every
Yeah,
time I get one of
We
these
already have it
articles.
generated, so you're going to have electronic copy to put up, plus we'll have some easels set up with the larger maps.
Oh, good, very good.
They're in the E-size format, so it's
Yeah.
a big,
And is the pond back there big enough to water ski on? Because that's really my main.
it is, as long as you don't go north to south. If you go east to west, you can do it.
All right, I'm there.
All depends how fast you can get up on your skis. Good flex immediately.
Bingo. That is exactly where my head was
Well, the
at.
question is it deep enough?
We figured that part out. What, we actually used to ski at a pond where you had to take off this way and spin and go into the course. That was tough. Article 7, the only change on there is the tree warden. Is that kind of what the big red writing meant?
Yeah.
Okay. You were just dying to chime in on something, right? You're like, you brought me here to this meeting, like, give me something to
We've
say.
got plenty of problems.
That is one of my articles.
Is that a planning board one? Okay. Do we have any planning boards on here?
Yes, the next one.
Excellent. Oh, yes, okay,
Show, yeah.
yep. I actually, I had to read this one no less than 10 times to understand the parking part of it. Because obviously it references, yeah, section 345, which is not in this. I didn't feel like looking up 345, so, and of course, it depends where the comma is to what it's saying. So I literally, like I said, I probably read it 10 different times, but basically, the gist of it, as far as that's concerned, is parking, there has to be parking on the property, not on the street.
Right.
Is that?
That's right.
The gist of it?
Yes.
And then, can you clarify the non-conforming, so if an existing property is non-conforming?
Right.
Is the gist of this that the ADU, and I will not use acronyms, bad, that the accessory dwelling unit has to be conforming?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So just because your existing building is non-conforming doesn't give you the ability to have the accessory dwelling unit be non-conforming?
Correct.
Okay. Then, yeah, everything else seems to be pretty straightforward on that. Like I said,
The whole point
that
is
comma.
we need some sort of governing mechanism to control what's going to be a massive sprawl throughout the Commonwealth, where folks are going to be putting multiple ADUs on one lot unless the town's put their bylaw in place. That's what this is for. To govern the one with site plan review, which isn't allowed, it's what we have for review, right? It's an allowed by right under site plan review, but then anything more than that needs a special permit. So we needed to get that in place. A lot of towns aren't actually doing this, and they're opening themselves up for the Wild West.
Interesting, because I thought a lot of them were, where,
Yeah.
like you said, the demand for accessory dwelling units seems to be increasing. So, yeah, I'm surprised that there's not more getting ahead of it.
Some towns aren't even having a special meeting in the fall. They're going to wait until spring, which is past the February 2nd, 2025, when this comes into effect.
Right.
So it's an interesting
So this,
Yeah,
approach to it.
this allows one by right, but not, if you want multiple, then you gotta go before the planning board and request it. Versus-
I anticipate there will likely be some revisions to this in the spring as we learn more about what other towns are doing, what other attorney generals are approving, but we needed to at least get this in place just to govern the amount of ADUs coming.
so the only request I have
Yeah.
is that we don't call them ADUs
Okay.
at town meeting.
Okay.
It's just, we tend to get, very comfortable with our own speak.
Okay.
And then when you have people come into town meeting, when you just start throwing acronyms,
Okay.
it can be like, okay, what's an ADU again? So that's the only
Okay.
request I have.
Okay.
I bet you he does it.
What's that?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, probably.
It's okay, Matt.
If he does it, then Keith's going to say found money.
No, that's just a Gene thing.
Tyson match.
Without acronyms, what would the government be?
Where is Old Webster Road? It literally does not exist on Google.
Well, you remember where that old piece of machinery was going towards Douglas, towards Webster on the left-hand side, and there's like a little cut-in, there's a couple concrete blocks.
Yes.
It starts from there, goes all the way to LKQ.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so is the plan on that to, what is the plan on that? So if we're looking to abandon our rights on it, what's the practical effect of that?
The property owner is proposing an outdoor storage of vehicles and wants to be able to get rid of that so he can put a fence around his property,
Okay,
so we can eliminate the access for the rights to pass and repass. It's no longer a road. It only exists on paper. The select board voted 20 years ago or so to abandon the roadway for all maintenance. It's just this needs a town meeting vote for us to properly wipe it out.
gotcha, okay.
Now, just to add a little wrinkle, and I keep saying this, but the town wanted to expand the vote and abandon Old Webster Road in its entirety in Douglas, could they do that on the floor?
No,
Okay, because this is only for this parcel,
yeah,
but it does expand onto DCR property, and they're not going to come forth with anything, so.
no, that would be out of the scope
You'd
of,
have better luck with ADU.
Okay.
Plus, for those of us who steal blackberries from the state, we'd assume to be able to pass and repass over Old Webster Road until we get to that spot,
Okay.
which was a secret until I just told everybody.
does the trunk line go past there? No,
Down.
It's further down.
that's further down.
Be the little Grand Trunk.
Okay. I think I might have wound up near your place on the Grand Trunk.
Probably on the snack trail, get up behind there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was out there the other day, and I was like, I could see, like some cars. I was like, where am I? I was completely lost, and it was
That's
dark.
probably where you were.
Okay. 11 and 12, we're basically just looking to codify in some liability protections for EMTs. Is that my reading that correctly?
You're bringing your EMTs and paramedics into the same
EMTs.
treatment as police officers and full-time firefighters for purposes of injured on duty.
Okay.
So it's an indemnification, basically. IOD is a program that stands in the place of workers' comp for public safety.
All right, Les, you might get what you want on this one. I don't, because that probably could be combined, 11 and 12.
He'd give you one anyway.
Well, he's the butler, you know?
The bundler.
Keep like
Yeah,
a
I'm
bundle.
gonna wear my
So-
flow costume. I'll save that one for the annual.
Okay.
So the big thing with Article 13 is who was going to supply the popcorn? Is that? Just every time that comes up, it always winds up being entertaining, to say the least, so.
The difference now is the building has sat there unused for a long time.
Oh, no way.
And now
It's almost like it hadn't sat there unused for a long
So
time.
it's even
The
longer
last time this came up before a town meeting. Yeah,
Things have tempered considerably since then. The school more supportive of relinquishing certain controls.
I
Having
think
said this, we're
where,
talking about a sliver of,
yeah, so then the next question will wind up be, if things go according to history, it will be, what is the selectmen's plan for it? Will it have to come before town meeting in order, for anything to be done with it? And,
So the answer to the second question is no. The motion contemplates that town meeting will turn this over to the select board to Make all decisions regarding disposition.
Yeah, and that was the bone of contention the last time this came up, which I would like to say was 2 years ago, but it probably wasn't.
No, that was,
No, it was
10.
COVID, we didn't talk about
I,
COVID.
yeah, no, it was being a little
agree.
facetious.
This is with the attempt to try to make it more marketable with some property.
Yeah. No, the only point I'm making is, you know, that this was essentially the same article that came up a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, probably
And
8
if
years
the,
ago, maybe, yeah.
if the discussion goes the same way, that will likely be the way the discussion goes, is, you know, does the town trust the Board of Selectmen to dispense of the property without approval from town meeting? A lot of the players have changed at town meeting, so it is possible that that won't be the way it goes, but just be prepared that it's a possibility.
Regarding the parcel, the school committee did vote to declare it as not used for educational purposes. The school committee voted on May 1st of this year. So the parcel transfer shouldn't be an issue if they were to allow that. We already have an A&R survey. I don't know if you need that for the screen or not.
I don't think so.
It
It's,
essentially looks like that.
yeah. I mean, a higher res photo of that would be nice. It's just, no, it truly is just, it winds up coming down to just a matter of who the town believes should be in charge of ultimately deciding what the fate of that property
I
is.
think we had 2 separate committees, actually, that looked at that.
Oh, it's-
To try to come up, so.
Yeah.
It's not like,
Yep. And maybe this will be the point where there's just been so much fatigue on it
Yeah.
that people are just like, yeah, you guys just do something
You're right
with it,
with
will you? But I don't know. Like, you know, I don't know. I'm only just kind of saying this is what some of the background has been on it
Yeah.
and what it could be. So I would assume that, you know, some of the questions will start to go with, you know, does the Board of Selectmen have a plan, you know, for this? Which I would probably allow that question. And
say
that's,
we have a concept. Sorry.
No, we have
That's-
to overly convolute this, but, you know, the sale of property is governed by Chapter 30B, Section 16. There's no role for town meeting to play in that. Town meeting gives the Board of Selectmen the authority to dispose of the property. That's pretty much it, because then when you actually put it out for bids, the Select Board can determine a policy, and like we've done before, where we sold a piece of property and said, you have to have an economic development project that's viable in order to be a suitor for this piece of property, and that was,
Just like we did on Webster Road. the
and
one
on
that was
Webster
just-
Road, it was the same thing. So you've done it twice in the last 5 years where the land has been transferred to the Select Board to dispose of, and the Select Board came in with a scoring system and a policy that if you didn't meet the minimum criteria, you were not an eligible bidder.
yeah, so if my memory serves me correctly, what had happened is, I think there was some rumor about what the plan for the building was. In town meeting, that's when they dug their heels in and said, no, we don't want to relinquish that power because we don't know if we like that idea. And in fact, I think it was, we don't like that idea. So I think that's where.
That was, I think we were doing, not only the land change, but there was some zoning changes, I think that was going along with that Bill had drawn up back when that went around the first time. I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Restrictions.
Yeah, because there was a proposal on the table for it. You know, and of course, it gets thorny because the article isn't about the proposal, right? The article is about giving authority and moving that property over to, the Board
Yeah,
of,
the goal isn't to just dump it and get it back on the books, it's highest and best use of the property is what the goal would be, I would imagine.
yeah. And so I guess that's kind of where I'm just kind of talking to you guys about like where the boundaries of the conversation will be is, no, we're not getting into specifics of like, this is the plan, this is, what the Board of Selectmen want to do with it. If you want to have that discussion, you need to go to a Board of Selectmen meeting. This is about transferring the property to the Board of Selectmen and whether or not that's the right thing to do.
It's the only thing to do if you want to do anything with that building at this point.
Right.
It's just,
And this is
Yeah.
very,
and the politics of the school committees have changed a little bit from when that had happened. They've actually, my understanding is they support this. The school committee does, correct? So,
Well, I think they're going to avail themselves of the opportunity to talk to you about what they hope to see there in your forum, not at town meeting.
yeah. Well, and the other thing too, for the 35 that are watching, right, we're not going to act quickly on this. There will be a methodical discussion. It's not like we've got, 10 opportunities, we're going to pick the ugliest one. We're going to talk about this.
this is never necessarily part of the process.
Yep.
You have to put all this in place before you can even explore what you're going to do with the building, otherwise you're not going anywhere like we have for the last 30 years with that building, whatever it is. I'm trying to be,
Like, I'm
I'm trying to
doing
be
the,
optimistic here.
I'm doing the math, and I'm like, I'm trying to think of when we put the roof on it. And
Well, it's almost due to be changed again, so we might want to
I'm sure.
consider transferring.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, because the roof probably has been 30 years.
It was the 1990s.
Yeah.
It's 100,000 or 110,000, it sticks in my mind. Probably be triple that today.
Sure would.
High up there.
Oh, yeah, at least.
Yep.
Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to kind of have that discussion of where that discussion could go and where it won't go.
Yeah, I don't think it'll go there, because this is why we're in this position today, because last time I went through, you ended up 10 feet away from the corner and kind of cut off the whole back part of the building to make it useless. So this is actually making it more desirable for somebody in some sort of commercial application, whatever that may be.
But it's still too close to the school to be able to open up a brew pub.
Even if they only use the front door?
What's that? I'm sorry, food in the back of the building only.
So if you can get a brew club and a taco shop, I think Matt would help you.
Yeah.
So that'll fall where it
You've been to
falls.
Burrowville too, huh? I do not go there on Taco Tuesday.
Oh, well, you're lost.
That place is a nightmare on Taco Tuesday.
Today was kind of thin.
Really? It's probably because it's getting cold.
They're pretty quick.
Morrisville, that's it.
Yeah, and then again, I think Article 14 is pretty self-explanatory as well, so. That's about it for me. Any questions that we haven't already covered?
So you're going to group all 14 together, is that what you were saying?
Yeah. I
But if you did
don't,
that, it would have to be 2/3.
don't laugh. That thought has occurred to me in some town meetings where I'm like, I would just like to just throw caution to the wind and just like, I'll take a motion to move all articles.
You'd be humorous.
It could be the quickest meeting in the history of Douglas. I could be in the record books.
Or?
Or there could be pitchforks at my front door and,
Flaming pumpkins and
It could be on
everything.
the
Yeah.
cover of town meeting time,
yes.
new edition.
Yep. Like I said, I don't know. One of these, this is not going to be the one. But one of these years, I might throw a flyer out there and see what happens. All right, thank you guys very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
So,
Thank you.
See you Monday.
I told you I'm out of town.
All right, moving on, we have a request from the highway superintendent, authorize town to plow snow and
You got
mow
the
grass.
statistic?
Yeah, I thought I did.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so request from the chief of the fire and ambulance department, we're going to look to reallocate $20,000 of ARPA funds from the highway building design project to the fire department for the demolition work and construction of code-compliant room for the staff rest inside the existing station, which I think we all wholeheartedly support. Matt?
So to keep the matters separate, so everybody understands that they are different, the special town meeting article is to do the entire project for the entire building. So all the electrical, all the HVAC upgrades for the entire station. What the chief has determined is that he really wants to get his people out of the trailers in the yard and back into the building. He can take one room on the mezzanine and convert it as a temporary measure to deal with that specific issue of the rest quarters. Now, we'll have another plan in future within the next 5-year time horizon to address this in a more comprehensive and thoughtful way. But for the time being, he needs about 20 grand to cut a window, put an air handling unit in that space. There's a necessity for a ladder for fire escape and minor decorating items in the room just to make it civilized. By doing this, we'll get the trailers off and we'll stop paying rent on them. So in a way, this project it's not going to pay for itself. It's still going to be a little bit more expensive to do than what we're going to save. We have about a net cost of $8,000. We're not going to obligate, I'm going to change my phrasing. We don't need to obligate all of the money that was set aside in ARPA for the highway building design for that purpose. In other words, that contract can be taken in phases, and we'll get the project moving in the right direction, but we can spare the 20,000 from what's there. So I think we have about 159,000 left in highway barn design. 139 is still going to be plenty for the part of the project I'm asking them to do this year. So that's where we're at with it. I think it's just in terms of managing personnel, it's tough to be outside. You have to have the communication when a call comes in when they're outside. During the wintertime, it's less than ideal, so.
Especially trying to sleep with the beeping of the
Yeah.
motor going back and forth in front of them.
So, any other questions, Mr. Chairman?
No, I think that the quicker we can do that, the better. I mean, kudos to the team for tolerating it.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the best we can with the resources we've had, and obviously the first and foremost concern was their health. But if we can get them into a space that has air handler in it, we'll be all set.
Very good. And entertain a motion to do just that.
I'll make a motion to reallocate $20,000 from the ARPA funds from highway building design for the fire department for demolition work and construction for the staff rest room. Quarters.
Motion's been made by Ross,
Second.
seconded by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's 5-0 unanimous. Now we can talk about authorization to plow snow and mow grass in the public right-of-way of a pending road acceptance, Whiten Heights, which is a follow-up from a discussion we had, I think,
We informally agreed to.
at our last meeting. Want to
So, Mr. Chairman, what we're looking for here is formal authorization, just so that highway has the necessary legal authority to be on this roadway. I agree that before they do anything like that, they should get a sign-off from the owner that says they're not going to be liable for any damage that gets done. If we're going to take away that obligation on his part before he finishes his road acceptance. But we're slated to do this at town meeting in May. which is the only time we can do a road acceptance. So we have a winter between now and then. The current owner has a track record of not fulfilling his obligations to the residents on the road. As they pointed out at the last meeting, that they pay taxes, right? And so this is not their fault that this project has languished on. When it comes to mowing the grass, I just want to remind everyone, if you look at the planning board, and Selectman Stevens was on the planning board for a long time, there are quite a few rights-of-way, common spaces in the town, the maintenance of which have not been assigned to a homeowners association. They are on town property, and they are our obligation. There are a number of stormwater BMPs all over town. When it first came to then Superintendent John Furno's attention, he made a list, and it was extensive. It was a dozen and a half really significant projects. We've been chipping away at that for the last 4 to 5 years. Every year, we do 2 or 3 BMPs. We cut all the trees down, and you didn't realize it, but there was a swale there. That's where the stormwater is supposed to go. That's the town's obligation. I think it's incumbent upon the planning board to pay careful attention to what they're signing the town up for generations. When we have these long entryways into subdivisions, in a way, that cluster development leaves more open space around the edges. Maybe there's a donation of conservation, and that's all well and good. But now you have a right-of-way that's really wide with a sidewalk, grass on either side of the sidewalk, and it is, in the end, the town's responsibility, because it's the town's property, to go up there and cut all that stuff and keep it under control, which at any given time is above and beyond our capacity to do in terms of equipment and people. So I don't want to make I don't want this to seem like a precedent, because the precedent's already been set. We already do this all around town. What we do have to do is resolve this gap between when the owner simply no longer wants to do this work anymore and refuses to do it, and the fact that the town voted back in the 60s to plow private roads. So we're kind of in that policy black hole, gray area, whatever you want to call it, in between the time of acceptance and the private owner's decision not to do anything. So that's why I'm asking for the authorization tonight.
My biggest concern is, like you were saying, liability, not just for damage. Say we get a 2-foot storm, and someone's up there, they gotta get to the hospital, and they can't get out. Are we on the hook because the road isn't plowed, even though it's not our road?
Well, we have a long history and a long track record of putting the plow in front of the ambulance and getting there. And that's pretty much how Douglas has rolled forever.
No, understandable, but are we opening ourselves up because it's not ours? And we said, yeah, we'll plow it out. It's kind of like being a friendly neighbor, and you know, knock somebody's deck off their house because you backed into it for trying to help them out. You know? Now you're putting a deck on your neighbor's house. In a sense, that's just...
Well, I think once we agree to plow it, the highway department will definitely take care of it. I would just like
Oh, I'm
to see
sure
a
they will.
damage waiver in place, so that
Yeah.
way if the curb's broken, catch basin, whatever's broken, we're not liable for it, because we haven't accepted the road, and who knows what condition they're in now.
Right.
I think Matt's one point I think that he made really well was about the maintenance of, you know, the swales and you have these retention ponds, and the town takes that on as part of accepting the subdivision. And it, you know, maybe it is some homeowners association of that subdivision or some further mechanism, because, you know, burdens the town's resources and stuff like that. I think it's a probably a further discussion that has to get looked at down the road and with multiple groups. You know what I mean? Because it's just, not everybody's a perfect case. And if you talk about like private road and, you know, plowing, you know, Wallen Lake Terrace is a perfect example. It's all private up there, but we plow and maintain it. It's never going to be public, you know, and so, but they have an association. You know, I think each subdivision, I think, you know, what I'm taking from Matt's thing is, you know, the long-term effect with maintaining these, you know, retention ponds and areas and stuff like that can be burdensome to the town, you know.
So, I mean, what I'm getting at, not to not maintain it.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we vote on this road and it becomes town property, now it's our responsibility. In that interim, we're gonna be the good fellow and go and plow it. And I know the guys will, and they'll do a great job. I'm just saying, if we do that, this landowner, not just damage to property, catch basins, just, I don't want to see us stuck because we're trying to be the good guy.
I got a question for you.
Not that it would happen, but
Yeah.
in the case of it,
I think in this particular case, the developer's still, you know, reachable and reasonable, whatever else, you know what I mean? In other cases, you know, I can name quite a few subdivisions, they became ghost. The town inherited the burden of, hey, we're gonna.
well, and that's kind of.
Yeah, yeah, so we're fortunate that maybe he could sign some type of, you know.
Right, if we have
reducing our liability
some
on
sort
that
of
end of it and stuff like that. But, yeah.
legal agreement to say, hey, we'll plow it, but we're not responsible for,
Yeah, yeah, and then there's part of the road acceptance, you know, there's a punch list that they go
Right.
through, there's sweepings, and there's all the maintenance, and there's a bond in place. So, you know, that helps with those.
just trying to cover our,
No, it's good to do that. Is that something we want to attach to our blessing tonight?
How many property owners are there?
Oh,
there's a fair
here,
amount of,
In this particular one?
is it 10?
Okay.
yeah, 10 or 12, I want to say, yeah.
Yeah.
So homeowners association is a great idea and concept,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't really work out that well in practice. Who's in charge of it? How does it collect its money? Then who's in charge of the money? And it's time after time after time, these things turn into a really big disaster. And this is near and dear to me, but not many people in this room or paying attention to this meeting will know much about this. But there was an October rainstorm back, I want to say that was around 2012, 2010, in October 2010. We got a tremendous amount of rain in a short period of time. And the Blackstone was literally at the top of the flood control in the city of Woonsocket. That's how I knew. The pump station on a little road in Cumberland called Bork Road, which is off Little Pond County Road, the sewer pump station that handled the sewer for 14 houses failed. Now, who owned that sewer station? The homeowners association. Was the homeowners association ever properly filed? No. The town said, not our sewer station. So for weeks, these people dealt with pumping out their basements, pumping out this terrible stuff, because the system was completely overwhelmed. And in the end, they had that tremendous loss of their use of their property, and there was no, all the insurance losses, whatever, wasn't going to be anything that the town ever paid for. Now, that's Rhode Island, different jurisdiction, but my point is HOAs simply don't work. Once you get past 2, 3, 4 homeowners who are all on the same page, it just never works out. And we have to stop thinking that that's going to be the way that we help the developer. It's not helping the developer, it's hurting the town. I'm not worried about emergency response because we face that no matter where we are. So that's when I wasn't giving my response to be flippant, I was truly being, that is how we allocate resources. If a call comes in and highway hasn't reached that road yet, the plow gets in front of the ambulance and we go to that person's home, whether it's a publicly accepted street or not.
Yeah, understandable, that's all.
Tim, I think it's something that we should think about a policy, because this goes a lot
Right.
further than what we're even talking about. All these subdivisions have sidewalks and everything else. I think we need some sort of policy that would help the town administrator as well as the highway department to figure out what we need to do and not need to do. If you have these large developments with sidewalks, which they're required to have, at least on one side, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
One side anyways, right?
So the planning board for, you know, years has decided to have one sidewalk, eliminate the trees in between the sidewalk. in the road because when our plows go by, they get waxed and we end up breaking mirrors. Ernie Marks, God bless him, educated all of us about what it was like plowing in roads and areas around town and helped us with that. And so the decision was not to have a lot of subdivisions with 2 sidewalks on both sides because, and trees as well.
Right, but my point is you're creating at least 1 sidewalk in all these subdivisions. And a lot of these subdivisions, they'll have, the bus doesn't go to every house like it did back in the 50s. And you have 1 spot that the kids are gonna congregate at to get picked up. So now it's gonna become an issue for safety for these sidewalks to be cleared. So it's gonna get a lot bigger than we're talking about tonight. It's something that we wanna consider moving forward to develop some sort of policy so there's some guidance to town staff. Anyways, but you're looking for a motion to authorize plowing for Whiten Heights with the condition that we get a damage waiver, some sort of liability waiver.
If that's the motion, I'll
That's
accept
my
it.
motion.
Okay, I'll second Mike's motion.
Made by Mike, seconded by Les. Any further discussion? Thanks for bringing that up,
Yep,
Ross.
there's a second part to this that I have to bring up because you also have mowing on there. So I think we need to make a motion, which I'll make a motion to authorize the highway department or whoever's in charge of mowing the grass to maintain that when it becomes a safety issue at bare minimum.
All right, so I'm going to accept an amended motion to include the mowing. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Good to bring that up, thank you. 2 host community agreements with our friends from Resonate. Peter, come on up.
All right. Good evening.
Peter, I think the last time you were at this table, you were with your father, you were very wet behind the ears and...
I had a lot less grays.
No, great.
Yeah, right. I'm cutting them all off now. It's good to see some similar faces. Oh, Hal, how you been? Timmy, good to see you. Yeah. And Mike, obviously some new faces as well since I was here. But good to see everybody.
Yeah, so we're looking at the host community agreements, and at the time, those were kind of law of the land, but my understanding is the market has changed a little bit. in respect to
Interesting artifact.
We're not there yet. Matt, you want to frame this a little?
I'll try. The CCC is a difficult agency to interact with. The path of least resistance is the one that's recommended. We have 2 HCA's with Resonate, one for medical use, one for adult use. They're both expired, right?
Yes.
And he's trying to get his licenses renewed. There has to be some sort of agreement between the municipality and the business. I see no point to having host community agreement any further. At the time, for better or for worse, the policy consensus of the town of Douglas was that this would have an impact on the community and the town should be compensated for it. The legislature and the CCC in combination have basically ruled that unless you can document the direct impact with a paper trail, documentation trained the way Gene would require it, you can't charge an impact fee. And really, there hasn't been any impact. I mean, we might run to that building more often, but there's more than one business in it. So it's not really the cannabis business that we run there for, it's the envelope factory on the first floor. And we don't have an impact agreement with them. So there is an opportunity to fill out a waiver form. They were attached to your packet. It's rather simple and straightforward. I just didn't feel like I could sign that on my own authority. That original agreement was a creature of the select board, so the waiver should be as well. But that's my recommendation. I don't think we need to. We have other issues to discuss with Resonate and with the owners of 120 Gilboa, but they don't need to be dealt with in the HCA, and we can continue to work on those things together.
So we're looking for a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign this waiver agreement.
I totally thought you made your comment.
This was a great presentation. Yeah, I wish I had you on the team. Yeah, right, I don't think I could have done it better.
Any questions?
Is there a motion made?
Well, I just was making certain there weren't any questions. The town's been a good partner for you along the way here.
Yeah, it's been a great run. I mean, I think that everyone works pretty well together across all the departments. Certainly had our bumps, but I mean, that comes with the territory, right? With the project, the development on the street and bringing the gas line in, I mean, upgrading the water line that comes in, I mean, that's all great long-term, equity, projects that are going to create equity long-term. But I think everything's been smooth. I really can't speak to any significant issues that we've had beyond getting through the build-out, which a project like that is significant, right? So all that comes with the territory as well, but it's been great. I mean, I hope that, we haven't received any complaints or anything from anyone in the town since the build-out. So everything's gone pretty smoothly.
You're lucky you're next to the wastewater treatment plant, so you don't get blamed.
What are you saying? It's not my fault, it's the guys at Uxbridge. Just kidding.
All right, you want to make a motion?
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, make a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign the 2 waiver agreement forms for Resonate.
Made by Mike.
I'll second.
Oh, you two are fighting for the weed guy. I'll go with, I'll do it again. 1, 2, 3. Ross. Ross, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
There you go. Thank you,
Thank
Peter.
you all. Appreciate
Peter.
it. I'll see you probably tomorrow. Okay, great. Thank you all.
Okay. And then we're going to accept some donations and grants. One is a police department donation of $15,578 for the Douglas Police, from the Douglas Police Association's, for cruiser modems and a flock camera. And the second is $115,000 for the community development from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities Master Plan grant of $115,000.
I'm not sure if Nick is on Zoom, he's up on the screen.
Yeah,
I
Oh, is he?
don't know if he wants to say anything or not.
Chief, do you want to talk about your grant, or your donation, rather?
Sure. Can you hear me?
We
We
can.
got you. Loud and
Yeah,
clear.
this is, we did some improvements to the cruiser modems, and we're replacing some of the laptops in there. So the police association had some money out in an account that they're closing out. They wanted to make that donation. So some of that money is gonna go to the computers and the modems, and the rest of the money is gonna go to those flocks that we talked previously about.
Very good.
Easy.
Yep.
Make a motion to accept that. Someone?
So moves.
Made by Hal,
And I'll second.
seconded by Ross. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. We accept number A, or letter A, and the Community Development Master Plan grant.
I'll make a motion to accept the Community Development Master Plan grant in the amount of $115,000.
Made by Ross,
I'll second the motion.
seconded by Les. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Those are fun. All right, thanks, Chief. Meeting minutes. Of October 1. Feels like forever ago.
Make a motion to accept approve the meeting minutes of October 1st, 2024 as written.
Motion's been made by Mike, seconded by Ross. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Unanimous. On to October 15. That also feels like months ago. Accept the motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the October 15th meeting minutes as written.
Made by Les,
Second.
seconded by Mike. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. 5-0. Matt, your report. Two-page agenda here.
I've been texting away over here. I'm managing Rich Bowen's expectations for when we'll talk to him in executive session. So I got a couple minutes to burn. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and thank you to all those veterans out there for the sacrifice you've made in your lives, for the freedoms that we all enjoy. In a year in which the federal election was just a few days before Veterans Day, it puts the exclamation point on the fact that we all got a chance to vote for the candidates of our choice, because that people fought for us to have that right to do that. And many thanks. I think sometimes we don't, because so many veterans don't talk about the things they did while they were serving our country, we've actually lost some of the story. That humility or that unwillingness to relive difficult memories is understandable, but there's a human condition that's set off by being sent to a foreign country and to fight for your life. And when we don't tell those stories, we miss the impact they can have on young people, especially growing up in a world where they haven't been necessarily exposed to the same level of conflict. I was doing genealogical research this year with one of my uncles, and in the quick course of pulling together some documents, I noted the confluence of his ship-out date with the date of his marriage. And then actually found more documents that he was a United States Marine in World War II, and he ended up being on the second wave at Tarawa. Now, Tarawa was a terrible battle. Most of the first wave there weren't many survivors from the first wave. But before they shipped out from California, they realized they were going to a really tough assignment as Marines. And so his girlfriend from Rhode Island got on a train, took the train all the way across country to California. They got married the night before he shipped out to that. And you think about all of the sacrifices that everybody made and the fear that they had that they wouldn't see each other again, and all the things that went into that. So thanks to all of our veterans. A big thanks to Mrs. Sosha at the primary school, who puts on that Veterans Day event every single year that's so well attended by Douglas veterans and their families and all the kids' parents at the school, grandparents. That cafeteria is always full of people. The kids put on a great show, and it is most definitely one of my favorite events here in town, along with Memorial Day, the solemn recognition we do on Memorial Day. But this is one of the most patriotic towns I know of anywhere, and it's a privilege to work here and see people like Mrs. Sosha not letting anybody forget the sacrifices that people made. Speaking of veterans, your former chair, Kevin Morse, is a veteran. He lost his father over this weekend. Services will be next Wednesday at Boomer Funeral Home. So I would encourage people who knew Kevin, and his time here as a public servant might want to stop by and express their condolences, and certainly thanks to Kevin for his service. Moving on to different conversations that we're having in town right now, I just want to make a couple of points. One is this fall town meeting sets the stage for our work through the entire winter and spring. So to the extent that these projects will be fully funded, we can put out the contracts, and you'll see things coming together as a resident very, very quickly, because the stage has already been set. All the soft costs have been absorbed, engineering is done. We're looking for the funding to actually do these projects. In some cases, we've broken the projects up into pieces because, frankly, procurement, there's a trick to doing procurement well, especially for the so-called horizontal public works projects where we're putting pipe in the ground or paving long continuous surfaces. We usually do much better if we buy the components on the market as a supply contract, and then we go out for a second contract for the labor installation piece. Because we're not going to pay a markup, any kind of markup from the general contractor back to us. Now, if you're doing a water plant, that's a really bad approach, because you're going to make sure all the pieces are supposed to fit together. But if you're putting water pipe in the ground, it's an approach that makes sense. So that folks don't feel like anybody's trying to deceive them. We've already bought the supplies for the Depot Street project. They're here in Town Hall, in the parking lot. The pipe, the couplings, everything's here already. That doesn't mean you have to vote the funds. It just means that we did this in order to make the most efficient use of the funds available to us. And we have a bid that was put out and had quite a few responses for the labor contracting piece of this. It's forcing me, like so many of these bidding processes do, to exercise my best judgment between a low bidder and the next lowest bidder, who might have been more responsible in responding to the project versus the low bidder. And I think that could be a decision that I'm not willing to make yet, and we'll discuss with this board in executive session. But I want folks to realize that this isn't always that easy. And sometimes a low bidder will penny bid things that you know cost money and will generate a change order. So is their low bid really low or not? There's a game that's played by people who play in this industry, and you've got to be savvy to it in order to get the best work done for the town. Both of those bidders were well under our budget, so that's not really going to be the problem here. The problem is going to be whether or not we want to face the music if we pick one over the other. As far as the highway project goes, and the purchase of land, nothing is ever easy, right? So you look at an entire menu of choices, and you put your focus on, and you try to do what is best for the town of Douglas. What is the best solution for the people who live here and pay taxes here and want the services that they pay for to be delivered to them in a cost-effective way? And that is the only focus. That is what we do here every single day, is we're trying to focus on what it is that makes us a better service organization so that people are satisfied with what they're being given. All kinds of extraneous considerations can be brought in by outside parties whenever we make a decision. Government, whether it's local government, state government, federal government, spends a tremendous amount of money. So people do get really highly motivated in these conversations, whether it's a local body or a bigger body, over whether or not they agree with certain political implications or other implications of a decision that's being made in the town level. So to the extent that people are inviting us to join controversy over title or arguments in probate or other courts, it actually isn't our business. We needn't take pause and allow somebody to force us to delay a necessary project for the town for years and years and years while they go through and parse out whatever legal theory they have, the flavor of the day, or whatever innovative way you want to organize your legal analysis, especially if you're not an attorney. I'm dancing around the subject, but I just want to make it clear that at town meeting, we will not be allowed to speak to the motivations of any party that has, different arguments to raise at the last minute. To be perfectly blunt, we went through a rather exhaustive and sometimes expensive process of parsing out which properties would be the best location for a highway barn for the town, and settled upon the properties that have been identified and put to this warrant. So in the proper time and place, town council will have to weigh in on their thought process here, but it was town council that recommended this friendly eminent domain taking approach, knowing full well what he was going to be up against as he went into it. The last thing I'll say, 'cause Rich is almost ready for us, is welcome to hell. Hell is living in a state that has a clear policy direction in one direction, and the federal government is going in a more or less completely opposite direction. This can be very difficult at the local level with implementing the various rules and regulations and authorizations that come from different levels of government. Now, I've worked for a United States Senator for almost 7.5 years, governors for 5 or 6 years total, and local government now for whatever, 13, 14, 15 years, whatever it's up to now. And 14. It's very unwise for states to pick fights with the federal government in an area where the federal government controls the funding. So it may not go well, and we're already getting the emails from state officials that want to kind of rally to some strategy to offset changes at the federal level. And it's completely unnecessary. The only people who lose are folks in their local communities trying to work things out with their local governments, while everybody else has their power trip and fights with each other about heady policies that they don't really think through and how they affect us. We've been having a conversation about energy independence and the potential of the town taking advantage of a municipal light and power statute in order to try to get some independence for Douglas so that we're not completely beholden to a national grid-run system that doesn't really take into consideration our needs as a community. For reasons that I think are perfectly reasonable, we're a small town, we don't have a lot of industry at the moment, heavy users. The town itself is the heaviest user of electricity in this community between wastewater plant and water plants. What I'm asking the board to do is when you think about putting the details to that goal, you are the policy-making board, so what I would ask of you is to think through the scope of your direction to town officials. How much of that do you want? Do you want to focus on renewable energy and green solutions and storage and having some islands around town that are basically microgrids that can be fully operational without the need for diesel backup? I'm not talking about diesel backup generators. I'm talking about a larger systemic solution. Or do you want to roll the dice and be a player in a significant energy generation effort in order to support economic development of a category that's really basically world-class? It's possible, it's doable, but it's also very time-consuming. And most of us have limited staff and limited time. We want to make sure that those resources are being allocated to things that will have a lot of impact on the community and the quality of life here. We don't want to run down the rabbit hole only to have people come out and say, we never wanted that, at a town meeting and be all kind of frustrated and angry. So it's up to the board to communicate to people about what the community is willing to tolerate, what you want, and your master planning process is in motion, so that's the place to engage the public on that. But then in terms of, Bob and Eric and I are loaded cannons. If you point us in a direction and light the wick,
Yeah.
we're going to go up. So just make sure you aim for what it is that you want to hit. And that's a long-winded way of saying, I don't want to spend a lot of time chasing, a data center solution,
Yeah.
which requires the generation of a tremendous amount of power that's not available on the grid, so we'd have to generate it ourselves. And with power generation comes controversy. Frankly, that's what it is. And if you don't want to go down that road, then stop it right now and simply say, nope, focus on panels and batteries and all of those kinds of assets, and don't spend a lot of time. Because I can see a tremendous opportunity for the community, but it would come at some division and some cost, and I'd rather not be pushed out there in front to make this grandiose plan. It takes a tremendous amount of effort and even maybe some money in terms of consulting and whatnot, only to have everybody say, what in the heck are you doing, and have the whole thing go down in flames. That's not a good solution for
I
anybody.
think it's worthy of another meeting and getting a
I think what
presentation about the pluses and minuses.
we have to, I think, describe to people what the opportunity is. The value that is contained in a data center in terms of computer servers and all the rest of the personal property that goes into a very expensive building would generate the kind of revenue for this community that would put you on financial stability for many, many years. And the assessor can help people understand that when personal property, after it depreciates and it's replaced, it's new growth again, right? So the tax base just, that levy portion that's paid by the commercial side just keeps getting bigger. And most of the communities that have engaged in this, there's a dance you do. There's a point at which the local tax burden could be bigger than the state income tax and sales tax impact. And so the corporate entity will refile. And I'm not going to get this right. I'm trying. But not as a Massachusetts corporation, but as a national corporation doing business here, so they're not taxed at the local level anymore. The tax goes to the state. There's a fine line that you walk when you have these major global players invest in a community, a small community like Douglas. So you want to work out those arrangements to see if you can't lock in that stability. Because the alternative course is a much more conservative financial planning exercise. We're back to 5-year plans and making sure, as Rich Bowen would say in Douglas, we squeeze every penny to the point where Lincoln screams. That's fine, that's okay, that's what we're trained to do. But that's a different world than, having anywhere close to 1 million square feet of world-class, artificial intelligence supporting data center. It's completely different. So we'll try to gather some materials and circulate them around and start a conversation. But it's definitely part of the master planning conversation. With that, we're pretty much set for Rich Bowen in executive session.
All right.
Additional items?
Any topics not
Just thinking of the
discussed?
state forest with this fire danger, is there anything that DCR doing to?
So the message is being put out over and over again for folks. So Douglas, we did a code red.
Yeah.
The governor today was going around the state reminding people of the danger. We have a unique confluence of events. The air is extremely dry, the winds are driven, and we're basically on the edge of a moderate drought level, so there's not a lot of groundwater, not a lot of water on the ground keeping things wet. So, not to be overly tyrannical about it, but please just hold off on the fires, cooking fires, fire pits, and all the rest of it until we get a little bit more rain and we're out of this mess. There are some communities in Massachusetts that have had some really significant fires, Georgetown, Saugus, a couple of others. Our own Douglas crew has been assigned to go out of town and help fight a fire in another community. When it's this dry, brush fires in particular are dangerous because they get into the ground, they get into the the roots of the trees and whatnot, there's nothing to prevent them from smoldering for a long time. Lots of times they reignite. And, the damage is really deep and long-term.
DCR doing anything that we know of?
They do a really good job.
10 or 15 years ago, we had the major fire.
So they don't, every year they do preventive stuff, right? So they will do some culling around the trails, mostly. Most of what you hear now in terms of chatter on their part is they're in the fire towers watching for smoke. That's about what they're staffed to do.
All right. Anything else? I'd just like to make a quick announcement for, touching on master plan for Thursday. There's an open house here at the Municipal Center in the gymnasium. I'd like to hear from, I'm on the committee, obviously, but I'd like to hear from town residents. We'd like to see them come in and participate. So we'll be there from 5 to 8 on Thursday night. Free pizza and refreshments.
Yeah,
Is the pizza at the end or the beginning?
I think they've got it at the end.
At the
So
end.
you have to work for it.
gotta work. Yeah, no, I've been watching those meetings, and you guys are doing a really good job with that, as is BFCC. Watch that. Excited about that land and the capabilities and possibilities there. All right, let's go into executive session.
All right, make a motion to go into executive session for purposes of potential litigation, MSHD. B would be proposed settlement regarding contract closeouts, costs on Northeast Main Street in Gilbo. C is property, interest in real property on Rydell Road. Then to reconvene into open session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Motion's been made by Ross, seconded by Mike. Roll call vote.
Stevens, aye.
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Davis, aye.
Smith, aye.
Bone and I. Good night, everyone.